Hey guys, it's Amy with Crafts by Aimee. I had a mini craft latch just now that I had to clean up. I am putting some markers back where they go, because they've been sitting out on my desk for weeks and they don't need to be on my desk. They need to be in this container. I do have paint out today because I'm painting. I need to decide what other color I want to use. Saffron. Or do I want to use gold? Do I even have gold over here? That's copper rose. Golden brown. That could work. I have no clue. Oh, I do have gold. Okay. We're using one of those colors. I just don't know which one. I'm leaning towards the gold, but I could change my mind. And I need to stop being here and picking my fingers because this is how I ended up with no fingernails. Let me just turn this. There. So Miss Yadi was finishing up a few minutes ago. Hey, Miss Yadi. Yadi was on before me. I've got to stop picking at my fingernails. I don't know what I'm so agitated about that I'm doing that, but it's starting to annoy even me. Thank you, Yadi. So we are in Miss Yadi's group, Yadi's Workshop and Friends event group. A paintbrush and my surface. So I'm gonna do a busted canvas. And in Yadi's live just now, I said I ran out of printer paper. I was printing out journal pages, and I ran out of the printer paper. I have a different printer paper, but I don't want to mix the weights. Hey, Lisa of Lil of Me Gifts and Specialties. Hi, Miss Yvonne. So these are from Hobby Lobby. I have the canvas panels and the stretch canvas. It was just more, so basically I couldn't find them at my Dollar Tree. And actually it was more financially sound, I guess you could say, to just buy them from Hobby Lobby because they were $1 a piece at Hobby Lobby instead of $1.25. So we have our front piece and we have our back piece. And thank you, Miss Yvonne. So we are in Yadi's event group, and today is celebrating states. So we're each celebrating our own state that we're from or that we live in. And for those of you that don't know, I am from Louisiana. I was born in Metairie, which is west of New Orleans. And my parents were both from New Orleans originally. So I am going to do something. So I have this to put on the inside of this busted canvas part. And this is my image that is going on here. And I hope it fits correctly. It might go off the edge just a tiny bit. For those of you that don't know, we are Cajun and Creole down here in New Orleans. And this is shrimp and grits. Or as my mom would say, shrimp and grits. Hey, Miss Grace, thank you for spreading the blessings. So this is what we're going to do. I think I'm going to paint the back with this and kind of blend it out because it does have like a border right here, which you're probably not going to see, but I think it might aggravate me. So I might like blend it with some of this lighter brown. I don't know. But I am going to paint it with this. And then I think I'm going to paint the inside part of the canvas with one of these colors. Now, I don't know which one. And this is rice paper. I don't know if I want to do the gold I'm thinking the gold for the front of the frame. I don't even know if I want to put a color behind this. I don't know what color I would put. Y'all let me know, what color should I put behind this? It's kind of like a yellowish golden color with the fleur-de-lis. So the fleur-de-lis is a symbol of New Orleans. We are a French culture down here. Some facts about us. We have we're the festival state. For those of you that don't know, we are considered the festival state. Louisiana hosts over 400 annual festivals every year. A couple of our main ones, New Orleans hosts French Quarter Fest, which is a free festival in the French Quarter every year, and it's all jazz music, which we are also the jazz capital. This is where jazz was born. And we have Jazz Fest, which happens out at the racetrack in New Orleans. And then in Breaux Bridge, which is in Lafayette, they have the Crawfish Festival, which my family used to go to. So we go all over. You think I should use the plaster on that too? Or should I just use a regular white? Because I do have white. Because this is not white. It's weird. So the canvas was painted white, but this is actual canvas color on the back. It's strange. I don't know why, but it is. I do have white though. I have white. I might do that. So there are a few things that y'all don't know. Let's paint our surfaces and then we'll worry about our images. So we're gonna paint this with plaster. I'm gonna paint this gold, so I want to paint that first. I want my gold to dry. So while we are working on this, let's see, birthplace of jazz. I don't know why it says that. Another thing about Louisiana, we do not have counties. This is an acrylic paint, so it might need multiple coats, which is why I wanted to get this one done first. I wasn't sure how it would look on here. It may not need them, but I don't know. But we do not have counties. And I just learned a new thing when I was looking up information while Yadi was live. I know a lot of stuff about Louisiana. I'm from here. I've lived here my entire life. And I mean, so we have parishes in Louisiana. Well, I didn't know why they were called parishes until today. I was today years old when I found out why we have parishes and how they were named that. So, for those of you that don't know, Louisiana is the fourth most religious state in the United States. And the whole parish thing came from churches. I found that out today. We have 64 parishes in our state. I live in St. Tammany Parish. My parents grew up in Orleans Parish. And I lived in Jefferson Parish when I was little. Which, if anybody knows anything about Louisiana history, or just history in general, take a wild guess who that parish was named after. It was named after a political person who was the reason that Louisiana became a state. Can anybody guess who that was? So we became a state and we have parishes because of churches. Because our churches are known as parishes. We have parishes, like churches that are parishes. Like, I was in St. Benilde Parish when I was a kid. That was in Metairie, which is part of Jefferson Parish. So it was named after Jefferson Davis from the Civil War. We actually had a street called Jefferson Davis Parkway up until 3-4 years ago, maybe, when we needed to wipe out the whole slavery and everything else happened. Like, I don't get it. You cannot erase history. And if you try to erase history, nobody's going to learn from it and things will repeat. It's just a fact. If you try to erase history, it's just going to repeat itself. And nobody wants to go back to that time in life. Oh, it was named, Jefferson Parish was named after General Jefferson Davis, who was part of the Confederate Army in the Civil War. So something that's famous about New Orleans is that many cocktail historians know that about the Sazerac. It's a drink, and it's considered to be the first ever cocktail in America. I've never had a Sazerac. I've heard of it. I don't know what's in it, but I do know that it's famous. We also have hurricanes. We have hurricanes that actually happen in the Gulf of Mexico, and we have hurricanes that we drink from Pat O'Brien's. And we have a place on Bourbon Street, which is a famous street in the French Quarter, that sells a hand grenade. And that drink is so sweet. If you want a sweet drink, you go get that. If you want a more robust alcoholic drink, go get a hurricane. And if you want something in between, go get a rainbow. That's at Pat O'Brien's also. That's my favorite drink there. No, I'm not an alcoholic. I don't go to Pat O'Brien's often. I just found that drink and decided I really like it. So I know that Yadi was talking about alligators because, hello, she's from Florida. Well, guess what? We have big swampland down here too. And Louisiana has the highest alligator population in the United States. Approximately 2 million alligators in the wetlands down here, in the swamps. So we have wetlands, but we call them swamps. And there's actually a tour you can go on an airboat. It's called the Honey Island Swamp Tour. And I've been on that. We went on a field trip on one when I was in, I think, 6th grade or 5th grade, something like that. I don't know that we ever really saw a bunch of alligators, but that's where a lot of the alligators are. And there's also there's a lot of folklore in Louisiana, especially New Orleans. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Marie Laveau. She was a voodoo priestess, and she lived in New Orleans, and she is buried at St. Louis Cemetery number 1, I think. I can never remember. I know where it is. I just can't remember if it's 1 or 2. And another unique thing about New Orleans and Louisiana in general, well, especially New Orleans, is our cemeteries are not below, like, we don't bury people below ground in New Orleans because Louisiana is, where did it say where it was? Louisiana is, I believe we're like 8 feet below sea level. I know we're below sea level. That's why we don't have graves that are in the ground. A lot of people are buried in mausoleums in New Orleans, which Marie Laveau is one of them. She has a mausoleum that she has built in, that she is buried in. My grandparents are both buried. They're not in a mausoleum, but it's kind of like one. It's more like a crypt, I guess. They have a building with like walls of coffin places. I don't know what they're called, burial plots, but they're not on the ground. You can't bury people in the ground in New Orleans because if anybody remembers Hurricane Katrina, I'm sure you've heard about it. You know, it was a famous hurricane that killed our city for a little while. Some graves, some of the people that weren't in their graves where they were originally before the hurricane happened. There were some coffins that were floating around in the city. And I'm not even gonna lie. There were coffins floating around our city. So yeah. I was trying to find it. I know I saved it in here, but I don't know where I saved it. But yeah. We also have our official state mammal. I didn't know we had a mammal, but our mammal is the black bear. I learned that today. This was an interesting fact that I didn't know. According to the NOAA, Louisiana has the third longest coastline out of all of the states in the United States. It stretches for 7,721 miles along the Gulf of Mexico. I did not know that. Yeah, Katrina was really bad. I was lucky. My parents and I did not live in New Orleans when it happened. And my grandparents, neither one of them lived in New Orleans either. We do have friends that live down there that had to rebuild and everything. And I did have relatives that live in Metairie, which is the city I was talking about where I lived when I was a kid. My aunt and uncle basically lost their house. There was a tree right through the middle of it. And they ended up living with my grandma for a little while because the trailer that FEMA gave them was so tiny. And I think they had 2 dogs when Katrina happened. My step cousin ended up going and living with my cousin in Boston and going to school up there for her senior year. I felt so bad for her. She was a senior in high school and had to transfer schools from Louisiana to Massachusetts, which is, a whole lot different culture, and they have snow, so she had to learn how to drive in snow. We don't know how to do that down here in the South. I felt bad for her when that happened, but she made it through. So a lot of this is going to be pulled back for our stretch canvas, so I'm not going to be overly concerned if it doesn't look 100% fixed. I can see some spots down here where I have paint out still, so I'm just going to touch up these areas where I see it. I can see it in the screen on the. So let's see another thing. Yes, St. Louis Cemetery number 1 is one of the oldest and most famous above ground cemeteries, and it was established in 1789. Let's mix some stuff up here with the last of this. And we are just going to set this aside to dry, and we're going to paint this one. Let's see. Like I said, Breaux Bridge is it's the crawfish capital of the world, which is where the Crawfish Festival is. The St. Charles Avenue streetcar line is the oldest continuously operating streetcar line in the United States. So I know a lot of y'all know about streetcars out in San Francisco. Well, New Orleans has streetcars as well. We have one on Canal Street, which runs perpendicular to St. Charles Avenue, and the one on St. Charles Avenue is the oldest continuously running streetcar in the United States. And I've ridden on the streetcar. I can't remember which one it was, but I want to say it was the St. Charles streetcar. So I don't need my gold paintbrush anymore. So I'm going to stick that in my water. So I'm going to paint this with plaster if this is thin enough to paint with. I'm going to put some water in this because I think it's a little too thick. How many of y'all know what Tabasco is? Tabasco sauce. It is a specific type of hot sauce. And I'm sure a lot of y'all, even if you don't live in Louisiana, have heard of it or eaten it. We use it in a lot of cooking down here because it's a Cajun thing. Well, guess what? It was created in Louisiana. There's a place called Avery Isle, or Avery Island in Louisiana where that is from. Tabasco is from there. And I didn't know this, but apparently it's not an island. It is a giant salt dome. I mean, I guess it technically is an island, but it's not a true island. It's a salt dome. It says it's a dome-shaped hill made of rock salt that rises above the surrounding marshlands. So, And it's, even if you're not from our country, this thing says that they ship to 195 countries around the world. So Karen might have it over in England. So I'm just painting this with plaster, which is just, you know, off-white. Let's see, what else do we need to know about Louisiana? Oh, the cathedral. We have a cathedral in New Orleans. It's in the middle of the city. It is not in the French, well, it is in the French Quarter, but it's not on one of the like big streets. There's alleys all around it, and it's called St. Louis Cathedral. And it is the oldest continuously active Roman Catholic cathedral in the United States. It is also where Harry Connick Jr. got married. No, I was not invited to that wedding. I do remember it though. It was a very big thing here. And I'm pretty sure, I know that also Serena Williams got married down in New Orleans, but she did not get married at the cathedral because she's not Catholic. And I don't think her husband is either. They just got married in the city. They did not get married at the cathedral. As far as I remember, I was down there for a play the night she got married because, I mean, it wasn't advertised in advance. And I was like, why is there so much traffic? Turns out that was the reason. I was with my mom when that happened. She was like, we should just tell people we were at her wedding since we were downtown anyway. I was like, no, that's not okay. I'm not doing that. So yeah, she got married in New Orleans. Let's see, what else do y'all want to know about us? Satchmo, who Yadi was just talking about. Louis Armstrong, that's his nickname, is Satchmo, for those of you that don't know. He was born in New Orleans in 1901. The airport is named after him. The New Orleans airport is now Louis Armstrong International. No, we do not pronounce his name Louis. His name is not Louis Armstrong. We call him Louis. Even though there's no E at the end of his name, it's Louis. Louis Armstrong. He was in the movie Hello, Dolly. And he sang the song Hello, Dolly for the movie that Barbara Streisand starred in with Walter Matthau. The French term for French Quarter is vieux carré. That is how that is pronounced, vieux carré. There is an exit off of the interstate that's literally called that. And it is the worst exit off of an interstate anywhere in that city. Because two interstates, parts of the New Orleans interstate merge within a quarter mile before it. And if you're coming from Metairie, which is where I would be coming from, you have to merge into the lane to get off so fast. And when there's traffic, it's horrible. And then the exit is literally right there. It doesn't have an exit lane. So you're basically slowing down on the interstate. So I'm surprised more accidents don't happen at that exit. But it is the exit to go to the Sanger Theater, which is one of the most famous theaters in our city. And it got really demolished by Katrina, and it took forever to come back. We also have a Mahalia Jackson Theater, which is down the street from the Sanger. And Mahalia Jackson is a famous musician from New Orleans. She is not, I don't think she's jazz. She's more like gospel. But she has a theater named after her. Louis Armstrong also has a park named after him by the Riverwalk, which is by the Mississippi River. I want to make sure this is really dry since I'm going to be gluing that paper on it. That's why I keep moving my head around to see what is not dry. Because you can't always see it head on when you're looking. Okay, let's see, what else? The first documented opera performed was the stage at Theatre de la Rue Street. That does not even make sense because Rue means street in French. So why would you name it the Theatre de la Rue Street? Oh, okay, I wasn't looking at it right. It's the Theatre de la Rue Saint Pierre in New Orleans on May 22nd, 1796. So the first opera here. The Conrad rice mill. So Louisiana has a big population for growing rice, sugarcane, crawfish. Louisiana produces like I think 90% of the world's population of crawfish. So that rice mill located in New Iberia, which I think I have family from that area, if I'm not mistaken. Is the oldest independently owned rice mill in the United States that is still in operation. It was established in 1912, and 2 of its buildings were listed on the National Register of Historic Places on November 10th in 1982. That was before I was even born. We also have a lot of plantations because obviously southern places had slaves, and I'm not going to deny that. My great-grandmother lived on a plantation and her family had slaves. There's nothing I can do about that. It is what it is. So we are going to glue the piece onto this one. We can't change history, people. You just have to live with it and learn from it. So I know I was talking. Oh, that's gross. Get a paper towel. Get that off. I hate when that happens in your glue. So I was talking about the Honey Island Swamp Tour. There's actually supposedly a Honey Island Swamp monster. So now we're going to get into folklore. I still have a few things left, but folklore. So there was a monster supposedly in the swamp. So there's a Honey Island Swamp monster. We also have obviously y'all have heard of Marie Laveau, voodoo priestesses. Voodoo is not what people think it is. I mean, I don't know for sure that Marie Laveau wasn't practicing some kind of dark magic, but I do know for a fact that voodoo was a ritualistic, like, there was a religion from Haiti. It was not some, oh, I'm a voodoo person and I'm gonna cast a spell on you and I'm gonna make a voodoo doll and put pins in it and you're gonna die. That is not what voodoo was originally. Now, I'm not saying Marie Laveau didn't practice some kind of dark magic, but that is not what voodoo. She was a voodoo priestess. That does not mean she did black magic. Just saying. But we did have some evil people up in New Orleans. I don't know if any of y'all have ever heard of the LaLaurie Mansion in New Orleans. It was actually on an episode of, what was the name of their show? Portals to Hell with Jack Osborne and Katrina Weidman. They investigated in there. And if any of y'all ever watched American Horror Story, the season where they did Coven, which was set and filmed partially in New Orleans, Kathy Bates played Marie LaLaurie. She abused her slaves, something awful. She had them chained up in the attic, and the only reason people found out about it was because a fire was set at that mansion, and when they went to go explore it to like put out the fire and stuff, they found remains. So she was definitely an evil person. And from what I remember reading, I think that Nicolas Cage owned that house for a short period of time. He lived in New Orleans. Angelina Jolie lived in New Orleans. John Goodman, he's very into Louisiana. I think he still has a house here. And I actually got to meet him through my grandparents. Through my grandfather, I got to meet him, which was awesome. Yes, there are tours in New Orleans for haunted places, and I will say this about the cemeteries. You used to be able to go into cemeteries in New Orleans and, you know, just visit the graves and look around. You cannot go in the cemeteries anymore without a licensed tour guide because there was so much vandalism going on. There was a lot of vandalism to Marie Laveau's tomb, honestly. People would go in there and write triple X's on there and leave offerings to her, like she was going to come back and help them out in life and afterlife, you know. But yeah, they do ghost tours in New Orleans. I've never been on one, and I really would like to go on one. I have eaten at a restaurant that supposedly has a ghost. Muriel's on the square. There's a room, like when you walk in, it's not the main dining room, it's a side room. And there's like supposedly a ghost that lives there. I have no clue if it's true or not. I didn't experience that when I ate there. Probably should have changed this to a better piece of sandpaper, but it is what it is. So back to this shrimp and grits. It is not the most well-known of things that are Cajun or Creole. We have both of those down in the South. Louisiana and New Orleans is more Cajun than it is Creole. My family is Cajun, and I will tell you this. We love our gumbo. If you ever make me a gumbo that has seafood in it and you put tomatoes in it, there's a good chance I'm going to throw something at you. Tomatoes do not belong in a seafood gumbo. That is a Creole thing. And that is not what this girl was raised on. My grandparents, my great-grandparents, I had a grandma who I'm named after, Aimee. Her name is Amy. Nobody called her Aimee. Her last name was Hebert, which is a very Cajun French name. And that side of the family never put tomatoes until my grandma came around, and I'm like, where did you? She told me, she was like, yeah, and you put a 15-ounce can. I'm like, I am not putting tomatoes in this gumbo. I am not ruining my seafood that I am putting in here, these shrimp and this expensive crab meat. I'm like, nah, that ain't happening. I told my grandma she was crazy if she thought I was doing that. That is a Creole thing. Tomatoes and stuff like that, like a bisque that has tomatoes in it, that's a Creole thing. No self-respecting Cajun person would put tomatoes in a shrimp bisque or crab bisque or anything like that. If you put seafood in it and you have tomatoes in it, you must be Creole. And there's a place in you've never had gumbo or you've never had seafood gumbo. There's a place called Belle Chase, which is where there's a military base there. And that could have been, if anybody saw my post the other day about the flyover, that could have been where that was from. The flyover, the decks that I saw. It could have been from that naval base in Belle Chase. But in Belle Chase, they grow Creole tomatoes. And my mom loves them. They only grow there. Like, if you try growing these tomatoes in other places, they don't have the same taste. Oh, you've never had gumbo before, Miss Shellie? Well, if you're ever, it's not an easy, I mean, it's not a difficult thing to make if you're ever interested in it. I can send you my recipe that I made. Because I had to make my own recipe after I told my grandma I was not adding tomatoes to my gumbo. Now, there is a difference between a chicken and sausage or andouille sausage, and people put duck in it sometimes. Duck is actually good. The bases are different for seafood and chicken. So for a seafood gumbo, you use okra. That is the base for it, is okra. And you can either cook down fresh okra or you can buy stewed okra some places here. I just buy frozen okra and cook it myself. Sorry guys, this is just taking forever on this side, so I'm just putting the thing closer to me. Okay. So I think I am going to get some smaller paintbrush out and try and blend this a little bit. It's not really spicy. The only way it would be spicy is if you added like Tabasco or hot sauce to it. It's not really a spicy thing. The spiciest thing about it would probably be if bell peppers, and bell peppers really aren't that spicy, in my opinion. I can send you the recipe and you can decide if you think it would be spicy, but it's not really. I think I'm going to use this golden brown. And if I think it's too dark, I might add some of that white to it. Because I kind of want to just blend it. Okay, I am going to add a little bit of this white. And when I say a little, I mean a little. I could probably use a smaller paintbrush than even that one. Let's use this one. It's because this is a watercolor picture that, and it has like a, let's add some more white. I definitely want to lighten that up. It's a watercolor image and it has like a cutoff. So yeah, my family is Cajun and I have Hispanic in my background. Even though my last name is completely and utterly French. My grandpa's on my dad's side of the family. There's some Hispanic names in that background. Because I was looking, I asked my aunt if I could have the, one of my dad's cousins when my grandma, I don't know if it was when my grandma was still alive or after she passed away, but they did like the genealogy thing. And she made this book and gave it to my grandpa. And so it was still at the house. And I was like, do you mind if can I have it? Like, I'd like to have the family history. And I was looking through that thing. And we have Hernandez in our background. And I'm like, yeah, that don't sound very French. And there was another one that I thought was very Hispanic. Like, I think like Ruiz or something. I'm like, these names don't scream French. And my grandpa was all about, we're French, we're French. And I'm like, look in your background, dude. Because if you had, you would know. There's some Hispanic up in this background. I know you're not really going to see this, but I have OCD and it's going to bother me. That's why I'm doing it. So, to each his own, right? But I have OCD, so knowing it was like that was going to drive me nuts. I'm going to turn it upside down. And I can see right here. I did not get all of this off on this side. We are also Hollywood South, for anybody wondering. That's another thing that we have a lot of stuff that's filmed here. The movie Interview with the Vampire was filmed here back in the, mid to late 90s. I think even more like the mid 90s. The Anne Rice novel was written in New Orleans. Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails fame, for anybody that ever listened to the Nine Inch Nails. He lived in New Orleans for a while, and I think he owned Anne Rice's old house. He was also the one that started, we used to have this thing called Voodoo Fest. And so Jazz Fest was more, they have a ton of stuff at Jazz Fest that is jazz, but it also has a lot of popular music nowadays. Well, back then, Voodoo Fest would have like more rock alternative kind of stuff, Like, Kiss played there. Nine Inch Nails played there. Like, Trent Reznor was the reason that happened. Like, I think he kind of, like, started that whole thing. Pantera started here. I don't know if any of y'all have ever heard of that band. The owners, there's a, I don't know if it's still open anymore. There was a restaurant called Ensamo's, which I ate at one time when I was younger. And the owner's son was the one that put together that band. It's a heavy metal band, so I would not be surprised if most people don't know what the heck I'm talking about. Hi, Shellie. Miss Shellie is up after me, you guys. And she is going to be doing something related to, pretty sure her state's Wisconsin. Mine is Louisiana, for anybody just tuning in. And this is some shrimp and grits. It's one of my mom's favorite things to get when she goes to restaurants that have it. Not all restaurants carry it, but we have a restaurant called Acme Oyster House in New Orleans, and it has a couple of sister locations outside of the city. My mom likes their shrimp and grits. So I'm kind of trying to blend this. And if you're not in Yadi's event group, you should be. And if you are a crafter and you want to be, you should get in touch with her. She doesn't do events too often. She tries to do them like once a week, maybe. But she works. So it's kind of hard for her to do that all on her own. So a lot of times she'll collaborate with Miss Yvonne. One of these days, Yadi and I will do a collaboration. She wants me to do events on Wednesday, and I just haven't done it yet. So maybe one of these days we'll combine our efforts and create an event on a Wednesday. Okay, I think this is looking pretty dang good for our shrimp and grits. Like I said, you're probably not going to see that, but it will annoy the crap out of me. So we are coming back to this. This is the canvas that I did gold on the outside. I think I'm going to do the white on the inside. And I'm going to get a bigger brush than that one. Let's get another one of them. These are all Dollar Tree brushes. And I am going to paint the wood. The last time I did a busted canvas, I didn't. But you can clearly see the wood on the other side. So I'm painting it. And this is the chalk paint from Crafters Collection over at Hobby Lobby. It paints very well. It's very good for what it is, I will say that. For being $1 paint, it does work pretty well. Let's see how much it is. Yep, 99 cents for that, for the chalk paint from that. You're not really going to see this part, but I figure if I'm painting the inside part right here, I might as well just go all the way to the top. And I do have my stapler out to staple the canvas panel to the stretch canvas. For any of y'all that don't know, this is a stretch canvas, and the other thing is a canvas panel. That's what they're called. I think the fleur-de-lis pattern will pop a lot with this white background. I don't know what this is, but I'm just wiping it off. Like I said, this is canvas. Like, it's real canvas. I don't know what this stuff from the Dollar Tree is. Hey, Miss Julie. Miss Julie is from Louisiana. She is further south than I am. She's closer to the Gulf of Mexico than me. But another fact about Louisiana, and I've talked about this before, is we have the longest continuous bridge over water in the United States. We used to be in the Guinness Book of World Records for longest bridge over water in the world, but I mean, this bridge has been around since the 60s, I think. It could have even been longer than that. It might have even been, I don't remember what year it was built. It might have been the 50s. Definitely at least the 60s. Hey, Miss Rosa. Did you get your peach preserves finished? Your painting that you were working on? I like that. I don't really like preserves, but I like the mason jar science. So we are working on an image. I have shrimp and grits. It is not the Gulf of America. I don't care. Nobody else in this world is going to call it that. I'm sorry to say that. I'm not sorry to say that. Also, I know this is political, but how many of y'all thought, Lindsey Graham's going to pass away before Mitch McConnell? Because I didn't have that on my bingo card. And when I woke up this morning and saw that, I was like, what the heck happened? And then there was an update that Mitch McConnell is still alive. I'm like, I mean, I didn't think he had passed away. I figured if he had passed away, his office would have said something. But I did not have Lindsey Graham dropping dead from a heart attack. That was not on my cards. That was not on my bingo card this week. Okay. I think that this is painted good enough. I'm going to go under the edge because I just am. I just want to make sure it's painted. Put that away. We'll try this white paint. Okay. But yes, we live by the Gulf of America. So back to our folklore. The Honey Island swamp monster is a thing. We have something called the Grunch. And no, I'm not talking about Benny. There is a band called Benny Brunch and the Bunch. And they did a lot of like Christmas songs and just songs about New Orleans. But the Grunch is like a folklore thing. We also have a Rougarou. Have any of y'all ever heard of a Rougarou? Hey, Miss Rona. There's also one that I just found out. It's called, where was it on here? The Loup-garou of Prairie Le Grand. I've never heard of that one. So we're making sure that this is dry so we can put glue on it and put the other piece on. But yeah, the Rougarou is a monster. We also have a local I don't know what it's called, but there's a baseball team here that's like college level or something, and it's called the Rougarous. We also have pirates back in the day, back when we were owned by Spain, which for anybody that didn't know, we were owned by Spain before Napoleon got us from France. France got us from Spain. We had the pirate Jean Lafitte. And there's stuff named after him in New Orleans. There's also a story that I had never heard of, but there's a poem called Evangeline by, let me see if I can click on this one and see, because I want to say it's William Wadsworth Longfellow. And back in the day, they moved people from Canada down here. I found out all kinds of new stuff today. So yeah, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote the poem Evangeline, and it immortalized the tale of Evangeline, who was a woman separated from her fiance during the expulsion, and she spent years looking for him. So the expulsion was Acadians that lived up in Nova Scotia, in Canada, were sent down to Louisiana. They ended up in Louisiana. It's not real, Miss Yadi. I have never encountered. You're more likely to encounter an alligator than a Rougarou. mean, there's a 90% chance if you go into Honey Island swamps, you will find an alligator, not a rougarou or a swamp monster. Or a grunch, which I had never heard of that before. The only grunch I know was Benny Grunch and the Bunch. And they have this song called Ain't There No More. There's a lot of stuff in New Orleans, ain't there no more. But yeah, apparently, you know, the poem Evangeline was about a woman that was expelled from Acadia. And apparently we have Acadian parish here. Again, for those that don't know, you know, Louisiana, we have parishes, not counties. Acadiana parish is Cajun country. And I didn't realize how many Native Americans lived here at one point. But I guess it kind of makes sense. And Thomas Jefferson is the reason that we are part of the United States, you guys. He was the one that bought Louisiana from Napoleon Bonaparte. For anybody that didn't know about that. He bought it from Napoleon Bonaparte in 1803 for $15 million. And it helped double the size of the United States. So just by purchasing our state, we doubled the size of the country. Now, horror films don't bother me most of the time now. They did when I was a kid, but it was because I had a friend that, like, messed with me and, like, told me that Michael Myers was standing out in my yard with a knife and we were home alone and I got freaked out. So, yeah. Yep. It says Louisiana Purchase territory was so immense that it wasn't just land for one state. It eventually formed all or part of 15 different American states and 2 Canadian provinces. I'm going to venture to say that one of them was Nova Scotia. I don't know what I could figure it out. I know the equation for doing that. I do have a finance degree, but off the top of my head, I wouldn't know. Let's see if Google would know. Hey, Google, what's the present value of $15 million in 1803?
On the website officialdata.org, they say $15 million in 1803 is equivalent in purchasing power to about $444,853,539.82 today. An increase of $429,853,539.82 over 223 years.
Wow.
The dollar had an average inflation rate of 1.53% per year.
Hey, Google, stop. So apparently it was a lot. I'm not really sure if they ever said about what it was. But that's kind of funny because it says the purchase of the Louisiana territory that we had, that he bought from Napoleon, was 530 million acres. I'm not sure why Napoleon sold to Jefferson, to be honest. That seemed stupid at the time. And the fact that in what it currently would be, that price, like, that's not even $1 billion for 530 million acres. So he got a really good deal from Napoleon. I don't know, maybe Napoleon Bonaparte was just really stupid. I mean, that seems pretty dumb of France to sell that for that kind of money. I know back in the day they probably thought that 15 million was a lot of money, but for that kind of acreage, it kind of wasn't. Hey, Melissa. My time is almost up, you guys, but I am determined to get this part finished. Even if I don't get the part where I glue it back done, that doesn't take very long. And I do have out these 2 little crawfish to put in the corners that I got from Temu. And I'm trying to keep this wet so that when I put it on, it's still wet, because I don't want to use my iron in here. This area is too small. That's why I keep going back in with glue. But we are talking about all things Louisiana right now because I'm pretty sure I'm the only person in the event that's from Louisiana. So we talked about the Rougarou. We talked about Tabasco sauce. We talked about how Avery Island is really a big salt dome. We had a governor. We had a governor, and his name was Huey P. Long, and he got shot at the state capitol and died. And you can still go to the state capitol and see the bullet holes in the wall. And it's the old state capitol. Louisiana has the tallest state capitol in the country. I did see that. Where was that at? Oh, and also we don't have the same we don't follow the same common law that the rest of the country does. Yeah, we don't. We might have to use this. We have civil law here. We do not have common law. We work by the Napoleonic Code. Our laws have never changed. So I need to cut this to be 8. No, let's do 6 1/4 and make it longer. Let's do 8 and 8 1/2 by 6 1/4. Yeah, we have the Napoleonic Code. That's what we follow, civil law. So we don't have common law marriage here in Louisiana. So no matter how long you've lived with somebody, unless you go get married by a priest or a judge, you're not married. So 8 1/2. We follow the civil code, which is what does it say? Louisiana's legal system derives from civil code established by the French Emperor Napoleon in 1804. Thus, the state's legal system differs from the other 49 states. So, yeah, we're different all over. And yes, Miss Shellie is up after me. She is the last presenter. Let's see if we can get this in the backing. If it'll stay, if it's still wet. It seems like it's still wet. I learned my lesson last time. Don't use something with a point. So I'm getting one of these out to push this under the rim. So yes, it was still wet enough to be able to push this on and have it stay. So I just made it cut it a little wider. I basically cut it to where the wood shows on this, because there's space between the wood. I don't know if I can't say if it's well, it's not really random because we were owned by the French until Napoleon sold us to Thomas Jefferson. And they just never changed our law. So we've just continued to be French law, Napoleonic Code and all that stuff. So yeah, like, I didn't even know this, but apparently because we follow civil law, civil code and stuff like that, we don't base our, like, when they look at juries, like cases in the courts, they don't just look at prior cases. So like if you've ever watched some kind of law movie or whatever TV show, and they're like, well, based on so and so versus so and so, that doesn't exist down here. They have to look at laws, not they look at law, not prior judgments, I guess you could say. So this is on the inside, and we're going to fold it back to be on this. We have our shrimp and grits, and I am going to make sure I put this down like this, and I'm going to staple this just like I did the last time I did one of these. But yeah, we're weird in Louisiana. Our laws are weird. Our cities, we don't have parish. We have parishes, not counties. This is probably not the best way to do this, but it's the easiest way to do it. Thank you, Rona. Stapling to me is the easiest. Some people like to glue. I don't. So obviously I'm not going to have this finished today, but I am going to turn my hot glue gun on because I am going to glue it while I'm watching Shellie. I'm going to put my brush in this white water. I'm going to grab, this is just one of those break apart craft knives. And so I am just going to, where did I put that ruler? Try and find the center. It'd probably be good if I was using the right end of the ruler. So my center is 5. Let's just put it like that. 7 3/4 divided by 2 would be 3.5 plus 3.5 plus a little bit. You know what? I'm just going to mark it here. And if it's not straight, it's not the end of the world. So I'm just going to cut through my canvas. Up and down. And let's see if I can do it this way. Oh, well, I'm not going to be able to do it that way, but I am going to get my scissors. And I will say that this is better. So it's better to use scissors than it is to use that. And these canvases are better than the ones at Dollar Tree. So thank you all for watching. I hope to see you all in my next live. I love all of you. And let's go watch Miss Shellie. Bye, guys.